All right, we are live again. It is still August, which means that I am going live on Facebook and YouTube every weekday. So I'm actually really looking forward to the weekend, tomorrow and Sunday. So we get a little bit of a break from doing this. Um, but every weekday in August, I'll be live, and most often I'm going to be together with another guest. And today I am joined by Jason Henderson of Absolute Home Inspections. And I'm going to do a quick little intro of him here in just a minute. Before we jump in with Jason, let me just mention that Monday's guest is going to be Tamara Tabusa. I don't know if a lot of people in Las Vegas know Tamara, especially amongst the realtor crowd, because she teaches a lot of pre-licensing and post-licensing and continuing education. And she specializes in helping new agents put together a plan for their success. So we're on Monday going to be talking about what her plan looks like and just basic tips and tricks for new agents to kind of get the ball rolling in their career and be as successful as possible as quickly as possible. So please join in on that'll be Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. But again, these live streams are for any realtor across the country, buyer or seller. This content and information is good for everybody. And so just encourage you to join that if that Monday topic sounds interesting to you. So Jason, thanks for joining me today. I'm very happy to have you on. And just before we went live here, we were just chatting about when we met. We first met, we figured it was probably around 2005, which means it's been 20 years ago. And I was just deciding to get into triathlon. And you had been in triathlon for a little bit, and you had a triathlon bike that you had for sale. And I contacted you, and we just got to talking, and ended up having a great friendship while we were both sort of doing all that crazy endurance training.
Yeah,
And have just stayed in touch over the years. And I've now worked with you on some of my lots of real estate transactions to have you be the inspector for those transactions. And it's just always been a great experience. And so I'm very glad to be on with you today. What do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and tell us how you got into this game of home inspections?
sure. Yeah, funny that it's been 20 years. That's crazy. And time flies. And what a great experience and what a great friendship we've had. And it's been a pleasure. And it's kind of funny that we both ended up in this world, and that's terrific. I have had a home inspection business now for about 6 years. Prior to that, I worked for a home inspector, a master inspector for a while, and kind of got my feet wet. And it's just been a great experience. Been through some ups and downs through the COVID period and
Yeah.
through the after COVID period, which has been interesting. And it's been a great experience. And it's been a pleasure working with you and your team. Your team is always awesome. And it's been a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Jason, one of the things that I've always really loved about working with you is that you are like the consummate business professional, the person who's thinking from a business thinker's perspective and not just from your own little narrow field. I have oftentimes been described as a businessman first and a realtor second, which I've always
Sure.
taken as a compliment. And I very much feel like that's how I see you. I just see you as a really smart business guy who's also just got a lot of good wisdom in life and good advice on lots of different subjects. So having you be somebody who's giving advice to clients of ours that is such an important thing for them with their house is, just always makes me have a lot of comfort that if there's somebody like you on the other side of that.
Well, I appreciate it. I come from it from kind of a unique background. My grandparents were all professors, college professors, and teachers, and I have a bunch of teachers in my family. And so, home inspection is an interesting industry, but in essence, that's what I do. I teach, I
Yeah.
educate, I work with buyers, and we talk about things and kind of show them what I've seen and try to educate as much as possible. So it's been a great fit, and it's been fun, and it's been something I've enjoyed, and I appreciate the feedback on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thanks. So can you start with kind of telling us what is the typical process that you go through when you inspect a house. What does it sort of look like on the day of? And obviously that can go in a lot of different directions, but just generally speaking, what does that sort of look and feel like for you and for also maybe for the buyer and seller?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what I always tell potential clients and current clients is my job is to give you as much information as I possibly can about the house. That's what I'm here to do. So on let's just say a standard house, a 2,000 square foot home, I'm going to spend a couple of hours in the home by myself, walking through the property, looking at everything I can possibly look at, touch everything I can touch, operate everything I can operate, and gain as much information about the house as I can. And then I'm going to have the buyer meet me at the end, and we're going to spend 30 minutes going through that property together. I'm going to explain what I've seen and then have that opportunity to answer any questions they have. And then, of course, the end result for us is to provide a report, something that's documented and written back to the buyer, which the buyer and their agent can discuss, use for negotiating purposes, use to make those final decisions, and just feel like, okay, I'm about to make the biggest purchase of my life. And I want to be as educated as possible about that purchase to make sure I'm not making a mistake, or, hey, there's some things here that, maybe I hadn't considered and I want to consider, I want to negotiate over.
Tell us a little bit about the system and the software that you use for the report, because I've seen a lot of inspection reports, and some of those are definitely a little bit more user friendly than others. So,
Yeah.
what do you use, and why have you chosen to use that one?
I went with Spectora, and Spectora is the most expensive, but it's also
Yeah,
the most thorough. And they really aimed it at millennials. It was designed by realtors for the home inspection industry with that in mind. And you're going to see in our reports, and anybody who uses Spectora, not just our reports, but you're going to see probably 400 to 500 pictures. You're going to see video links. You're going to see drone footage. You're going to see thermal footage. It's really, it's a hands-on process, and it's the opportunity to get the most visual contact out of a report. As you know, right now, probably 30% of the buying market is millennials, and they're expecting something bigger. They're expecting something with pictures and with touch points, and where's the link, and how do I learn more about that? And oh, wait, this is broken. How do I fix it? Well, here's a link. Here, let me send you over to YouTube and show you how to make that work for yourself. I will be honest with you, it's more expensive than anything else on the market, but it's worth it. What I'm trying to provide and what great inspectors are trying to provide as an endpoint for the buyer so they feel as comfortable as possible in the process.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. All right. So anybody who's watching live, or if you're watching this on replay, if you have any questions or comments for us, please give those to us. Jason's here to answer questions live, and also you can get a question answered from the realtor perspective if you feel like there's a good question for me. So we're always welcoming those kinds of things there. So be sure to let us know what you want us to talk about today. So, Jason, are there things in your inspection that you intentionally do not inspect?
Not intentionally. I'm limited. So we work out of the state of Nevada. We have standards of practice, and we have things that we're not allowed to do. And it's home inspectors can't take anything apart. So I can't take apart an HVAC system and look at the coils. I can't disassemble a dishwasher. I can't pull a toilet. There are things we're limited to, and that's where we draw the line. So for us, anything I can physically do, I'm doing. I want to gather the information. I want to gain the information. I want to share the information. There's nothing that I'm not inspecting that I'm allowed to inspect. That said, there are some restrictions based on licenses. For example, I'm not a mold inspector, so I can inspect for mold. That's not saying that if I saw something that looks a lot like mold, and I know what mold looks like, I'm not going to give you that information and say, hey, let's get a mold inspector out here. Look at this. We've got this growth on the wall. We need to talk about this. But for any great inspector, anything they can inspect, they're going to inspect. That's the end answer, hopefully, for every.
Yeah, very good. So, do sellers ever stay present for the inspection? And the reason I'm asking is because like I've been there at inspections before where the inspector would say something like, "Oh, there's this electric cover that the door is open," and I just walked over and went click and closed it. And I didn't know if the inspector wanted me to do that or not wanted me to do that. But if I was a seller of a home, that's something I'd want to do just so it wasn't, creating noise in the inspection report. How does that all play together? And which of those methods do you prefer?
I love that answer. If you can do it without me taking on the liability, please, please do it. I think, and I'm reminded back. I think this is going back 5 years from now. I did an inspection for you, and we had a GFI that, or not a GFI. We had a breaker that was tripped in the box,
Yeah.
and you came back and you said, "How come you didn't just reset the breaker?" And I said, "I can't. I'm not allowed to. I mean, what if I reset the breaker and the house catches on fire? It's not going to catch on fire.
Well,
But
and
what if it
that's
did?"
that's not just like a like you protecting your own butt, like a liability thing. Isn't that part of your standards of practice? So,
It also falls into my insurance, right?
okay.
So
Okay.
there's both factors there. One, I could lose my license over it. Two,
Mm,
my insurance doesn't cover me if I do it. Now, it happens all the time where I will be at a property and I'll say, "Hey, look, I can't run the dishwasher because it's full of the seller's dishes."
yeah.
And the realtor will turn around and push the start button, and I'll go, "All right, here we go."
Yeah.
That's wonderful. But just know that an inspection company is a company. And so we have limitations and we have liability. So we have to follow our rules, even though we don't necessarily want to. I definitely want to do all those things, but at the
Right.
same time, we've got to protect ourselves. So,
Now, you were telling me the other day that the standards are different from state to state, and I was
yeah.
kind of surprised by that because you mentioned that there's actually sometimes big differences. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, and this is probably the best example of it. We're in Nevada. And so we have a standard of practice, and we have classes that you have to take, and tests that you have to pass, and continued education that you have to perform to keep your licenses.
Yep.
And if there are issues, they can pull your license at any point and stop you from being able to perform inspections. Um, our sister state is California, which is one of the most regulated states in our 50 states,
Yep.
and there's no license requirements there. Anybody
Wow.
can be an inspector there. Versus, Florida's got hurricanes and they've got different requirements, and the East Coast has basements. And so they have different standards of practice and what they have to perform. So every state is very different on what their requirements are and what their standards of practice are.
Okay. If anybody is watching this on the replay and you do have any questions or comments you want to make, please make them anyway. I will still reach out to you after the live stream, just because if you're watching this after we're done being live, we'll still get back to you. I'll connect you with Jason or whatever, so that you can ask those questions or get them answered by him. In fact, I'll just go ahead and show right now. If anybody watching this ever wants to contact Jason, I can definitely recommend him from the realtor perspective as a really good inspector. This is his number. This is how you would reach him. And I'm sure he'd be happy to take your call. I know that Jason is willing to do training and conversations with people, even outside of, the normal job of being an inspector. So he is a wealth of knowledge for everybody.
So I'll say this right now. I do CE classes for realtors all the time in the state of Nevada, but that number goes right here, goes right to my phone. And I tell all of my realtors, whether or not they utilize me or not, I say, send me a picture of something if you've got a question.
Yeah.
Let's say you're representing a seller, you're in a house, you don't know what this is, text me a picture of it. I'm happy to help. That kind of goes back to what I said. My job is to be an educator. So I would believe that if I can educate anybody, regardless of whether or not we're getting paid for it, or you're a customer of ours or not, I believe in help anybody I can. So send me a text if you've got a question. I'm happy to help out.
All right. In just a few minutes here, I'm going to be showing some really funny, interesting photos that I that I found of different situations. I do have a couple of questions for you
Okay.
before that, and then for everybody watching, make sure that you stick around to the end because I'm announcing a really exciting thing that I'm doing in September that I think that not just realtors, that pretty much anybody would be pretty interested in what I'll be doing there, what I'll be announcing at the end there. So, Jason, what are the biggest or most common problem areas that you see? And the reason I'm asking that is because sellers might want to make sure they've kind of looked around and prepped for those simple things that they could just make sure are not out of order when you come. Uh, and also, homeowners are always kind of wanting to know what they should be doing to maintain their house and keep things up to par as much as they possibly can. And I'm sure you see the cases where that isn't happening. So, what are some of the most common ones that you could share with us?
Would say the most common. So for us in the home inspection industry, water's the enemy. So
Okay.
we're always trying to figure out how is water going to cause damage. And I'm always looking at that. And so the obvious and easy fix is sealant. If I'm going to the bathtub fixtures and I'm moving them and they're moving all around in the wall and they're shaking around, well, you need to reseal that. And I'm going to
Yeah.
call that out. Um, and then we get into kind of our higher dollar items. So we need to think about the water heater is a unique item that only lasts about 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
It's not overly expensive. It's probably about $1,500 to replace if we do have problems. But there are traditionally a lot of issues around a water heater, whether it's rust, whether it's we're missing certain safety features, whether we're missing a sediment trap, whether we're missing a drain line. They're all easy fixes, but they add up really quick on a report. And if I'm a seller, I don't want 5 items associated with my water heater when I could have resolved that. I could have made that work. So if you think about water intrusion and how can water be causing damage, and you think about items that are going to be multiple items on a report, you can get ahead quite a bit on a home inspection by taking care of those items.
Yeah, every single one of those things that you just mentioned, I was sort of smiling because I'm like, yeah, I can think of a transaction. We had that one. I can think of we had
Yep.
that one. And just a kind of a realtor pro tip here: if you have a listing, there are certain things that are a good idea to go look at with the seller before the inspection and before the appraisal, because like if there are not two earthquake straps on the water heater, then that's going to be in the appraisal for sure. And I'm sure it's going to be in the inspection report, most likely, right?
And it's
And
probably a $20 fix,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
let's take care of it ahead of time. Let's get that out of there. We know we're going to have things that we're probably not going to fix, but let's fix the easy ones.
yeah. Well, and you can avoid lots of times, you can avoid a reinspection fee by the appraiser or the inspector if you just go
Right.
through and do some of those things that are probably going to be found there. I know that some sellers feel like it's a pro tip to sort of leave a few things that the inspector can find, almost like a decoy. And I always tell the sellers, like, you're not going to decoy an inspector away from some other problem, but
Right.
it is sometimes good to leave something that the buyer can ask for repairs that isn't going to be super tough for the seller to get fixed. So
I'm going to tell you, in the thousands and thousands of inspections I've done, I've never found a perfect house. You don't need to leave me stuff. I'm going to find plenty. Just the way it works. I did a brand new house today, brand new, and it had 40 items. So we're going to find stuff. You don't need to leave us stuff. That's okay.
I was about to go to some pictures, but you just brought up something that I wanted to talk about after
Yeah.
the picture. So let's just handle it now. Should a buyer get an inspection if they're buying a new construction property from a builder?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Yes, yes, please do. Um, so the misconception is that somebody built the house, right? You had a builder, he came in, he built the house. It's not true. It was a bunch of subcontractors who built the
Mm.
house. And Friday at 4:30 happens for every subcontractor. And
Yeah.
2 out of 3 brand new homes I go into, I find empty beer cans. It's not a norm. So you're spending a lot of money to buy a brand new house. It should be brand new. So $500 or whatever the inspection fee costs, it's going to be worth it to have somebody come in, make sure that it's right, make sure that it's set up. Now, that said, I get it. Buying a home is super expensive right now, and it's hard for a lot of people. So you got a lot of expenses. You're buying a brand new home. Maybe you can't do in your budget the home inspection then. If you're not going to do it now, 100% do what we call an 11-month inspection, which means that. So here's how it works, right? We build a house, we dig a big hole in Mother Earth, we put this huge concrete slab on it, we put this big old heavy thing on it,
Yeah.
and then that house settles. It
Yeah.
starts to move, it starts to find its space in life. And then as it does that, doors don't open the same way they used to. Windows don't open. We get a little stucco cracking, we get a little drywall cracking. Maybe the plumbing comes off in the wall and you're hearing some knocking. You get a 12-month umbrella warranty with a home with when buying a home. So take advantage of that warranty. You've already paid for it. It's included in the price, the warranty. So for 500 bucks, have somebody come out, detail, write it up, make sure everything gets taken care of. In the perfect world, if I were talking to my mom or my daughter, I would say do both. But I get it. Some people, the budgets are tight. Things are tight right now. But either if you're not going to do one, do the other for sure.
All right, anybody who's watching live or even on replay, if you have any questions for me or Jason, be sure to post them in the comments. Even if it's after we're done being live, we will get those questions answered for you. So Jason, when you do an inspection for somebody who's buying new construction, which by the way, I one time saw you posted on Facebook, one that you did that was constructed by a builder, and you found that they had failed to put insulation in one of the exterior walls. And that's something that nobody would have known about. And probably would have taken a long time to discover. It's just an inefficiency in that house. But
Yeah.
you caught it, and I saw your thermal imaging that showed that was clearly missing the insulation there.
That's not unique. I find it all the time. Like we said, Friday at 4:30 happens, right? It just does. And so that's something that unless you're cutting into that drywall, you're never finding that. And the only person who's ever going to find that is probably me in 5 years when you sell it. When I
Right.
come through and I go, hey, there's missing insulation in that wall. And you go, I always wondered why it was cooler over there or hotter over there. But
And it's lots better to let
um,
the builder fix that for you instead of you having to do it when you're selling the house.
absolutely.
So when you
Yeah.
do an inspection like that for somebody buying new construction, do you go out multiple times at the different phases, or is it usually the whole house gets constructed and then you do your final inspection?
You can definitely do that. It's what's called a pre-drywall inspection. We don't offer it, but there are a couple of companies in Las Vegas that
Okay.
do. And
Okay.
if someone has questions about that, they can reach out and I can recommend people who do offer that. There hasn't been enough demand for us to offer it, but we traditionally will do what we call a our post drywall, and we'll do an 11-month. And we'll
Yeah.
combine those and we'll offer a discount if you want to do both. Um, but yeah, and then honestly, there's some builders who won't let you do a pre-drywall, so that's always
I
a little
love the
tricky.
idea of that 11-month. I think that's a great idea. That's like a realtor pro tip. Put a little thing in your calendar to contact your client who bought a new build around 10 or 11 months.
Yeah.
And you're going to look like a hero because you tell them, hey, you might want to do this. This is your last chance under your builder warranty, your normal builder warranty, right? The other things are warranted. But yeah, I think that's a really great idea.
Let me ask you this, Cody. Do you ever buy presents for your clients when they buy a home?
Yes,
I've got a lot of realtors with new builds. That's the present. They buy the 11-month.
that's a great idea. I like
Yeah.
that. I'll be taking you up on that idea
It's
for
a good
sure.
touchback, right? You're going to touch back to them anyway. So why not touch back and say, hey, and by the way, as you're, in 11 months from now, I've already purchased this. And then you can follow up 11 months. And then, hey, by the way, anybody else who's looking to buy a home? And
Yeah.
it's a good way. And I've got a bunch of realtors who do that, who use that as their welcome home gift.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's show some of these pictures.
Okay.
Uh, I know this will be a fun part of it. Let's see here. I saw when I was looking online, I
Ouch.
saw a lot of electrical stuff, but this one with the wires coming out of the receptacle, I was just like, oh, that is choice right there.
That's that's Uncle John's handiwork, right? Uncle
I'm
John
guessing
came
that,
over and hooked that up.
yeah, I'm guessing that would probably make it onto your inspection report there, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest. Look, it's not a hard fix. It is something that needs to be fixed, but this isn't the end of the world. We just need to resolve this. That's
Yeah.
all. That would be the conversation we'd be having is like, hey, I'm glad this was worked this long. I'm glad nothing's ever come out of it, but let's make this better.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, let me show you the next one here. This one, that's ingenuity,
I
right?
I like that actually. I think that's very clever. That's obviously an apartment complex, and someone just got clever and said, "Ah, I got a way we can shut this door." I don't think there's any safety issues about this, and this is one of those items that I would just be informing the buyer about, like, "Hey, be
Mhm.
aware this is this way. I don't have any real problems with it, and it's it's clever."
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes wonder if the juice was worth the squeeze on this, right? Like, how much more does the door actually open? Maybe 3 inches more?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like
Well,
I imagine there was, like, somebody trying to get a washer or a dryer through the doorway or something and needed those few inches and just got out the Sawzall.
I bet it's the other way. I bet the door wouldn't close without them being able to do
That
this.
yeah, yeah. All right, let me show you the last one that I had sort of found, then I'm gonna ask you if you've got any good examples of it. So, this one, I don't know. This thinks I think maybe this one is photoshopped, but you were saying that we sometimes see electrical in the shower like this.
We've seen some crazy things, not necessarily the box with the breakers, but yeah, we'd be having a very serious conversation about we're not stepping in that shower until this gets resolved, until we can figure this out. This is you're sending your ex-spouse in for the showers on this one. This is not a good spot.
So even though I thought maybe I was getting duped by the internet trolls on, that maybe Photoshop this one, I included this picture because when I was in Brazil, I lived in a place that in Brazil, lots of times there's an electric coil in the shower head and it just gets hot and the water runs over that coil and it's just giving you kind of on demand hot water. And normally that was fine, but there was one place that I lived where if you touched the knob when the water was on, you'd get shocked. So you had to shut off the power, turn on the water, then turn on the power, let it get hot, and then when you went to turn it off, you had to shut off the power so you could turn it off or you'd take a shock. So that's why I included this one here.
Darwin's theory proven.
So I'm sure you've seen some crazy things. Do you have any fun stories to share about that?
You know, I don't know if I got any fun stories, but I will tell you that as a home inspector, there's this fantasy, right? There's this fantasy that you're at some point going to do an inspection on a foreclosed bank-owned house, and you're going to crawl up in the attic and find that bag of money type of
Yeah.
deal, right? It's not true. I'll tell you what happens is about twice a month we crawl up into the attic and then we find things that we shouldn't find. Usually they're like adult toys or pornography or anything that people are trying to hide up in an attic. They think no one's ever going up there. Unfortunately, we go up there. And so there are always things where you're like, okay, all right.
It's interesting because from a buyer's perspective, when I'm representing buyers as a buyer's agent, the place I want the inspector to be sure to go is to the
Yeah,
attic because that's the part we can't see with our own eyes. It's hard.
yeah.
It's hard for the general public to get into an attic, and so you being in there and inspecting is something that I would think the sellers should certainly be expecting for sure. So
I just don't think they think about it, right? Especially with tenants. Tenants just don't ever think about it. But you're right. It's someplace that you need an inspector to go. And sometimes there's some really good signs up there. And I don't know if you know this, but if you ever go up into an attic and see that it's painted white, do you know what that means?
no, what does that mean?
It means they had a fire. At some point, they either had fire or they had a huge mold remediation. Now, if
Okay.
you're a buyer, that seems like some pretty important information, right? Like, okay, at some point this house was on fire, or at some point this house had so much mold that we had to do a huge remediation and paint the attic and cover it. And so, yeah, make sure that whoever you're hiring as a home inspector, first off, goes to the attic, and secondly, has the opportunity to get there because sometimes we don't. Sometimes that closet will be full of personal stuff and they've got stuff and I can't get to the attic. And then and in some scenarios, we've got flippers who are clever and wise and will go
Yep.
ahead and cover that attic access and make it not accessible. So
Yeah.
as a realtor, make sure that your home inspector can get to that spot. You're right. It's important.
Yeah. Okay, so to this point, we've covered like really basic stuff, but I do have some really good questions, and I've been promising my viewing audience prior to this live that I was going to come at you with some really tough questions. We're going to hold
Bring it.
back no punches.
Okay.
We may or may not agree on some of these things that we're going to talk about next because I realize there's lots of differences of opinion amongst realtors, amongst even in the inspection world. There are differences of opinions on some of these things. So in just a second here, we're going to go into some of those, what I'll call like the controversial topics. Before I do that, let me just mention to any realtors who are watching, I do teach about 100 hours a year of free CE for any realtor license in the state of Nevada. And that is the Eventbrite page where all of our classes are listed. And I think I can even show, let me, let's see, do I have to remove this one? No, I thought I could share my screen, but I got to remove this one. Sorry. Just growing pains on how to use the system. This right here is the Eventbrite page for that. You can follow the, you can click the follow button, and then it will notify you whenever we have upcoming classes. And these are all the classes that we have scheduled through the end of the year. So there's lots of different, I think there's 8 different classes that we teach. I teach those together with Carrie Phillips. She was on the live, she was my first guest on the August live streams. And so I encourage you to go there. I promise you, we call these the Unmundane Realty Education Series because we didn't want to use fun. We know that CE and and fun don't go together. But we can at least be unmundane. And I promise you, if you attend one of these classes, it will be an experience unlike you have ever had in a CE class. So definitely join us at that. And then in the upper corner, and I don't know where this displays, but in the upper corner of either here or here, you're going to see the Scan Me code. And there's a QR code there. And that is a place where you, if you're a realtor, a buyer, or a seller, and you want to get some time on my calendar, if you scan that code, it will take you straight to my calendar, and you can pick a time that's convenient for you. I'm happy to meet with you at any time and just talk with you about whatever questions that you have, real estate or entrepreneurial related. Would love to do that. So make sure to check that out and pick a time that works for you. Okay. Let's go into some of the the hotter topics here.
Okay.
The question is, and then I'll give you my opinion first, and then you can tell me
Okay.
if you agree or disagree. The
Okay.
question is, should the buyer attend the home inspection? And I have for a few years now very strongly recommended to my buyers that they do not attend the inspection. In fact, I do have a video on my YouTube channel about why that is. And I'll tell you in a minute here why that is, but I prefer it when my clients don't go to the inspection. From your perspective, Jason, what advice would you give? And from your perspective, do you like them there or not?
First off, shame on you. Yeah, I do want him there, but I want him there under my special rules. So
Okay.
I want to put my head down and I want to focus, and I don't want to be distracted by the father-in-law who's going to walk me over and what about this and what about that and those this thing and oh this is super important to me. I want to be able to focus on the property, and I want to, like I said, I want to be able to gain as much information as possible for the buyer. But then I want to teach, right? So I need you there to teach. So for me, what I always tell my clients is I say, look, give me a couple of hours to be there and then meet me at this time. And at that point, I'm going to be done with my inspection and I'm going to be focused on you. And I'm going to spend some time and we're going to walk through the property and talk together about what I've seen. And why this is important is because a home inspection report is incredibly scary. I have to cover my backside. I have to, when I put it in black and white on a piece of paper with my company name, that's what's going to show up in a court of law if there's a problem in the future. And so I have to protect myself from that. What I don't have to protect myself from is when we're there on the property and we can have an open conversation about it. Hey, the the stove is missing an anti-tip, and that could be a huge safety issue if little Timmy steps on the door and it spills over and there's boiling water on it. But guess what? That's a $10 item. And it's
Mhm.
super easy to fix and it's not that big of a deal. And oh, you don't have a little Timmy? Okay, well, as long as you don't have drunk friends who come over and are going to step on the stove, then this probably isn't that big of a deal. But understand in the report, I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to make it an orange item, and we can talk about how I color
Yeah.
code things, but I'm going to make it an item that I think you should resolve. So if you don't give me that opportunity to talk to your clients and explain things and go over things and really kind of make sure that they're not scared, then you've got to rely that when they get that report that you're going to be able to do that conversation with them. And now they're like, well, yeah, but there's something in it for you. For me, there's not. You paid me once, I'm here to give you as much information, and so let me have that opportunity with those clients. Let me talk to them. Let's go over stuff. I'm not going to scare anybody. I'm going to reassure them, and then we can have the conversations that this is what this costs, or hey, I'm going to point it out, but it's not that huge of an item. Remember, I just told you I had 40 items on a brand new house.
Yeah.
Well, what am I going to have on a 1950s house? And when they get that report and it says 120 items on there, they're scared. They're
So
terrified.
you did mention one of the reasons that I give in my video of why I encourage the buyer not to be there, which is just that you're in the way of the inspector doing his
Yeah.
job the best way he can possibly do it. And you know, I'm sure you're a great YouTube inspector yourself. You know, you've watched a lot of YouTube videos on it, but you're paying this person to be an expert, and so that's one of the reasons I like him to stay out of the way. Let me tell you why I started doing this. Um, it would happen to me a few times where the buyer would be at the inspection and talk with the inspector, and the buyer would get a certain impression from the inspector about the quality of that home and if there were any problems there, and that was all verbal. And then what happened was when they got the report, they didn't hardly pay any attention to the report because they felt like they had kind of handled that already with the inspector. And then they closed escrow, and there was stuff in the inspection report that they were really upset by. And so there's certain ways to mitigate around what I'm saying, right? And I think your conversation at the end, you probably do a really good job of making sure that doesn't happen. But one of the things I really emphasize with those buyers is whatever the inspector tells you, the inspector told you. But what you have to rely on is what's in the report, because like you mentioned, that's what would show up in court. And so I just like to encourage those buyers to really pay attention to the inspection report, read through it really carefully, and if they have an issue with something, now is the time to get back on the phone with the inspector, ask what's going on, you know, ask if it's a big deal, get themselves as educated as they possibly can. So I don't know if you've 100% convinced me, but there's probably some medium in there. I do like it that you have them come at the end. I think that's
I,
much better.
I want to offer you a third option.
Okay, perfect.
Show
That's
up,
why we're here.
sh- show up with them.
Yeah.
Let's all three be there. Let's all three talk about it. And then you and your expertise can also get involved in that conversation. Hey, Jason, what about this? And what about that? And I see you said this and I see you said that, but can that be this? And there's an opportunity as humans to have a discussion about things that I feel like we lose if I just give you a piece of paper or a document that's 125 pages long that says, hey, I saw stucco cracking, but I also saw one of the trusses is broken. And now you count one for one, stucco cracking and truss broken. But if we're there and I can say, hey, we've got some stucco cracking, but let's spend 5 minutes talking about this truss. There's an opportunity for, and it's in essence what you were saying, but there's an opportunity for me to express like, hey, I kind of want you to focus over here.
Yeah.
I don't need you to focus on how one of the pavers is uplifted and it might be a tripping hazard. I want you to think about this. And so, and in essence, that's what you're saying. You got to trust the expert a little bit. And if you haven't found an expert that you trust enough, then as a realtor, then I would just recommend people go out there and have those conversations and get to that point. And the best way to do that is to be on site. Be on site with them and then figure out what they're going to say and how they say it. And are they scaring your clients or are they educating your clients?
Okay. I got two more of these more
Yeah.
controversial ones here that I want to talk with you about. Um, I'll leave the one that I think is the one that no one talks about the most, that could be the most controversial, for the end.
Okay.
There is this perception amongst realtors and amongst the general public that they kind of have this like gross taste in their mouth that the inspector has no liability. There's this concept they have no liability because their contract says that they're only liable up to the amount of the cost of the inspection. And like, this could be a $20,000 problem and they're only on the hook for $400 or something like that. Right. So
Sure.
what do you say about that?
Well, I don't disagree that the liability is going to be a little bit limited. I would say that we're going kind of circling back to the idea of who you hire is important, and what their background and what their experience is in the field, and what kind of tools are they using, and how much do you trust them, and have you done your homework to find out if this person's been in business for 10 years, and what kind of issues have they had? What do their reviews look like? Um, and I think that that's all important. We do carry EO insurance, errors and omission insurance, and we're required to carry it in the state of Nevada. Now, we talked about every state's a little bit different.
Yep.
So we do have some liability on what we see and what we can cover. That said, and I'm not trying to move away from this, but please also understand that a home inspector is a little bit limited. Like I said, I'm going to be on the property for 2 hours. I can't see inside of the wall necessarily, right? If you decide you don't want to do a sewer scope and all of a sudden your sewer line goes out, there's going to be some limitations here. A home inspection also is just there to gain you information. It's not a warranty. It doesn't mean that if it was working today that it's going to work tomorrow, and that comes up on occasion. Um, and I get that. And so being educated, being aware of what a home inspector can do, understanding that we're working under that realm and that umbrella, and that this isn't a home warranty. Just because you had a home inspection doesn't mean the home's going to be perfect forever. Um, that's the best you can do. Find the best inspector you can and go with it.
I actually really love how some of those things that you brought up in there, because there is sometimes a perception amongst buyers that an inspection is a warranty or a guarantee. And what I always tell people is like, listen, it's sort of like the punishment should fit the crime kind of a thing. Where if you were providing an inspection that was also a guarantee or a warranty, the liability would be higher, and the cost to get it would be also be higher, right? But it's really important that the clients understand that that's not the purpose of the inspection. And when you understand what the purpose is, it's basically to do an overview of it and say, at this snapshot in time, these were the conditions of these various mechanical items and of the property in general. And if there's anything that looks like maybe it needs a little bit more digging, you're going to identify that for us. So,
Yeah, I always say that my job is to give you as much information as possible. And sometimes that information is going to be, we need more information. Sometimes I'm going to say, hey, I found this issue with the roof. We need a licensed roofer to come out and take a look at this. And that's part of what a home inspection is. It's if you use a general practitioner as an analogy, you go in and you say, man, my nose hurts and I'm having problems here. And I look at it, and as a general practitioner, I say, you need to go see this specialist about it.
right, right.
That's in essence what a home inspector is. And you always have the option of bypassing the home inspector and hiring a licensed electrician, plumber, structural engineer, HVAC tech, and hire all of those specialties to come and look at all of those things. It'll cost you thousands of dollars to do it. But the simpler, and the way we've kind of all agreed, is let's get the general practitioner out there. He or she will then point us where we need the specialist to follow up on.
All right, very good. So I think we handled that one. Let's get to
Okay.
the big controversial one.
Oh boy.
Before I mention that, I just want to mention one thing really quickly, that we have a realtor group called the Synergy Community, and every year we do a service. We do a day of service. It's almost always on October 6th. And this year it's on October 6th. And we, like we have done in the past, the beneficiary of our service is going to be a veteran. And these are like $50,000 or $60,000 value renovations that we do to these veterans' homes. And this year is particularly special because the veteran that we're helping, his name is Bob, and he has a nonprofit organization that he has other people come to his home, the other veterans that is like a support group. And so when we bless Bob, we saw his place and we said, oh, we can make this place be so much better for all these veterans. But by blessing Bob, we're actually blessing all these other veterans at the same time. So this year, particularly excited about it. In the description of this video, There is a link to the Eventbrite page where you can sign up to come volunteer your time on October 6th to help us. And then even if you can be there that day, or if you can't be there that day, there's also a link to it's a donation link where every little bit counts. We're trying to raise about 25,000 for the materials that we need this year, and we're at about 5,000 so far. So we still got time, but anything that somebody would be willing to contribute, we would definitely very, very much appreciate that. All right, Jason, you ready for the big question?
Bring it.
Okay, so realtors, they want the transaction to close for a lot of reasons. One of which is that realtors get paid when the transaction closes. And inspectors want to do a very thorough job and advise the buyer of everything that could possibly be wrong in the house so that the buyer is fully informed and educated. But I know there are realtors who specifically won't work with certain inspectors because the inspectors bring up the most stupid nitty-gritty stuff in our minds, and deals get blown up, and transactions that would have happened don't happen. And it's kind of this unspoken thing that nobody really wants to say out loud, but it's true. There's a balance there where there's almost like this conflict of interests between the agent and the buyer and the inspector, because you can't be too good of an inspector. This is the way I would say it. You can't be too good of an inspector, or else no realtors are going to want to recommend to work with you. So I know that because you're a good business person, you've seen this, you know it's out there, and I know you have come to a good equilibrium balance on that. So describe for us what that process was for you and where you're at on that particular subject.
I think it's a great question. And it's one that lives on our side too. When we get in our Facebook social groups and we talk about things like this, that's one of the things that falls into our world as well. So I think the easiest way to answer this is to back up a little bit and explain how someone becomes a home inspector. So we've talked about how the state of Nevada works. And so I kind of want to focus on that because it's what I know the best. But in Nevada, there's a couple of months of classes. There's a state test that you have to take that's based on the standards of practice. And then you become a home inspector. Most people who follow that process come from the trades, right? They were
Yeah.
roofers or electricians, and they've decided to become a home inspector. And so that's
Yeah.
what they do. You then become a home inspector, and then you've got to figure out, how am I going to do this as a business? And you've really got two choices. One, you can go out on your own. You can start your own business. You can hang a shingle. You can then figure out websites and SEO and insurance and how do I do marketing. And you can do all of that. Or you can go work for somebody else for some duration of time. And if you're working for somebody else, that's an experienced company that's been in the industry for a while, right?
Yeah.
So those are our two choices. We're not really worried about the experienced company. They've kind of figured it out. We're worried more about the new guy who's just come out of school. So the new guy comes out of school, and I'm saying guy because it's a male dominated industry. And
Sure.
please understand that it can be guy or girl. And we love to see more women involved in the industry, but traditionally it's a male. So the guy comes out, he finally figures it out. He gets his website out, he goes and he brings cookies to open houses, and he shows up at realtors' offices, and he finally gets a couple of deals, and he starts to do inspections. Now, as a male, one of the things that is pretty common with us, especially in the new industry, is imposter syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got to justify my worth. And so one of the things that we do naturally as in humans is that we start to build things up. Oh my God, look at this over here. Let me show you this. Look at, oh, this is so bad. And thank God, aren't you glad that I found this for you? And oh, I'm a hero, right? And I'm totally worth the cost that you spent to get me here. It's very common in our industry, and it takes a while to figure that out and to get over the imposter syndrome. And I think that's in essence what we're probably talking about is we're talking about inspectors who go through, blow things up, and why they blow things up is pretty natural, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got all that information. We're all on the same page. We're realtors now. We get it. I will tell you that I get 2 to 3 calls a week that go like this. Yeah, I just need a price quote on a home inspection and when your next available slot is. All right, what's the address? Perfect. It's going to be this amount. Okay, now that realtor is taking three of those, right? Because that's your standards of practice. And they've gone back to the client and they said, I've got Joe who will do it for 250 tomorrow. I
Yeah.
got Tim who will do it for 350 on Thursday. And I got Jason who can't get to it to Saturday, but he's charging $550. Which one you want? I'll take the 250 tomorrow,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Now that realtor has put the brand new guy in there. And why is he so cheap? He's got to generate business. He's got to figure it out. He's got to get out there. And so now that new guy is out there with your client. You've got four deals this year because you're kind of a new realtor and you're trying to figure it out. And this guy's blowing it up. Well, whose fault is it? It's your fault.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I love
Well,
how you blame it back on the realtors. That's awesome.
100% it's the realtor. Why? One of two things: either educate your client about how important a home inspection is, or do the research yourself. Don't call me and ask me how much. Look at our reviews. Ask how long have you been in business. Look at our reports. Find the three people that you're going to recommend that you trust, and then go back. And I promise you, they're not the cheap guys. They're never going to be the cheap guys. So if you're running into a spot where someone's continuously blowing up the deal, it's one of two reasons. One, you let your client go pick their inspector and you didn't educate them on how to do that. Okay, well, that's on you. I don't feel bad that you lost the deal because the new guy scared your client. Or two, you haven't done the homework to find three good inspectors in your area, and it doesn't take that much who you trust to not ruin the deal. So I know it's controversial and it's always going to be controversial, but in the end, our job is to give them as much information as possible without getting sued. Right?
What I
We want
what
to educate, but I don't ever want to scare anybody. It's not my decision whether or not you buy this house. It's just my decision to give you as much information as possible and answer your questions.
what I've always valued with working with you, Jason, in balancing this, like what could be a conflict of interest, is that I have felt like you do a good job at identifying all of the things, but also giving the client a feel of the magnitude of them, right? Because sometimes the way it's worded, it's still there, but the way it's worded could really spook somebody or not. And I've just always been impressed with your explanation of it. Of that, yes, this is a problem. This is where it really fits into the big scheme of things. And I've also felt like you do a really good job in your report of explaining the relative magnitude of things, and give that client something that they can really kind of dig into.
I'm going to pause you for 2 seconds because you've done your research and you've found people you trust, right? And so one of the things, and I'm just going to explain how we do it so that someone will have a reference on what to look for when they're looking for an inspector. With our reports, we color code it. I broken it into three colors and I've made it really simple. My blue color, and it'll say on the report, it'll show up with a picture of what the item is, and it'll be in blue, and it'll be a key in the beginning of the report that explains this. And when they meet me on property, we'll have this conversation. Hey, I'm going to get your report this afternoon. I'm going to color code it for you. I want to make this simple. My blue items are items I just want to make you aware of. You don't have to do anything about it. I just want to give you that information. Great example. You've got cracking on the driveway. Okay, you got cracking on the driveway. Let's keep
Yeah.
an eye on it. Let's monitor it. If that big tree gets a little bigger and the cracking gets bigger, at some point you might have to do something about it. Don't need to panic. It's blue. Orange items are items that I want to make you aware of because they'll either cost you more money down the line if we don't resolve them, or they're safety issues. A good example of that is when this house was built in 1950, we had different safety codes. We didn't have to have GFI receptacles in the kitchen. Current safety codes say that we do. I'm going to recommend that you upgrade to current safety codes because it's a safety feature. They cost about $25 a piece plus the cost of putting them in. That's an orange item for me. I think you should
Yep.
do that.
Yep.
A red item, which I rarely run across, but I do run across red items. You've got Kitech plumbing in the attic and throughout the whole house, and there was a mass class lawsuit and blah blah blah. And this is going to cost you 20 or 30,000, and a lot of insurance companies aren't going to deal with this. We need this to be a red item. That's how we do it, and that's how a lot of your better, more successful home inspectors do it. So you as a realtor, not you, Cody, I know you're doing it, but realtors out there, take the time. Find the guys who are and gals who are doing that for you, who are representing you and your company, and who can become part of your team to help educate and make sure that your buyers have the best experience they can have. If it goes well on this one, well, guess what? They're probably coming back to you again on the next one, right? And that's how I run my business too. It's how you run your business. Let's take care of everybody now. Let's make sure they're referring people back to us. Let's make sure everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's common sense,
Yeah,
right?
thanks for explaining that. I was actually just reviewing for one of our clients the inspection report that you sent to us, and I very clearly blue, orange. We saw no red, thankfully, in this one.
Yep.
It was really good, but even the blue items were really educational for the buyer, and that was really good. So if realtors, Jason has just given you some really, really good advice on how you should conduct yourself with respect to home inspectors. I recommend Jason, and I just put on the screen his contact information. Definitely have him be in your pocket as somebody who is a great inspector that you can refer your clients to. I will tell you, Jason, that yeah, there's this idea out there that we're supposed to have three, that we're supposed to recommend three. And I understand from a liability perspective why that might be. But I have found that the buyers almost always go with who you just suggest. And I will say that I don't agree 100% with this concept of always recommending three, because why would I recommend somebody that I don't think is the best person for those particular circumstances, right? So
Yeah.
um, all the realtors out there can do with that what they want. But if you are a realtor in Las Vegas, please jot down Jason's number, because he's somebody that you definitely might want to be talking to about all of this stuff.
Thanks, Cody. I will tell you that the most successful realtors that we work with, and we work with a bunch, and just to follow up on what you said there, and I don't get in trouble for that because it's not my world. They traditionally say, "Here's my three, but call Jason."
Yeah.
You know, and that's almost always what happens is, "Here's my three, but call Jason," or I'll
Yeah.
call Jason if you want me to and figure out what we're doing. I will also tell you, just so you know, I'm probably the most expensive guy in town. And the reason I'm the most expensive guy in town is because we do a great job and we're busy. And the guy who's the least expensive in town is available tomorrow and needs the experience. And so if you'd like to put him on with your clients and have him get that experience, you're welcome to. But that's what I always tell people. I say you don't call a car dealership and say, how much does the car cost? They're going to say, what do you want? You know, what are you looking
There's a
for?
lot of choices there for sure. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Before we jump off here, I just want to mention a couple of other quick things. In the month of, oh, hold on. Let me remove that one. There we go. In the month of September, I am starting something for, it's not just for realtors, it's for anybody who is interested in the subject matter. I'm doing what I'm calling the Unbook Club. I'll explain here in a minute why I'm calling it the Unbook Club. We're starting this month with the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. I recommend this book to everybody. It will change the way you think about your time, how you value your skill set, how you conduct yourself in your day-to-day. It is a really good book. But the reason that I call it the Unbook Club is because I know that realtors are probably not going to actually read the book. So the reason it's the Unbook Club is I'm doing this together with Shelly Johnson. She is an absolute animal in this business. She is a team leader that has a mega team in North Carolina. And so we will be doing this meeting on September 17th, and we'll be doing it by Zoom. So anyone across the entire country can participate. And what we say is that we'll do the reading, we'll do the work, we'll do all the thinking. You just show up, listen, and participate in the conversation. And we hope that that will add value to your world. So that's for anybody. You don't have to be a realtor for this. This Buy Back Your Time book applies to everybody, not just realtors, but would love to have you join us on September 17th. And lastly, I'll just mention that I talked a little bit about our Synergy community. This is a group of realtors that we have, and we have a board of directors and an agent advisory committee, and our entire mission is to provide the best environment for success that we can for realtors. So even if you don't have any questions for me, please do scan the QR code, the purple QR code, wherever that is on the screen, and set some time to meet with me, because I'd love to just explain to you what we're doing and why we're doing it. And you can be a realtor anywhere across the country. and be part of this thing that we call the Synergy community. So it's a completely different, revolutionary way of doing our business. I personally believe it solves a lot of the problems that are inherent in the business of being a realtor. And so we're trying to tackle those problems, and it's been the best business decision I've ever made my entire life. And it's just made being a realtor so much better than it was before. So I'd love the opportunity to talk with any realtor about what we have going on and why we have it going on. Jason, this has been great. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to fill very much time, but we're actually, we maybe you and I are rambling on. I don't know, but this has been really educational. I hope that people will watch and rewatch this, because you dropped a lot of truth bombs in this conversation that I think will be really helpful for realtors. So thank you again for being on with me today.
Thanks for having me, Cody. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, we need to do some stuff outside of work sometime. Maybe go get some lunch
Agreed.
together or something.
I want to come to your farm.
We can do that too.
Yeah, I do. I
We
do.
could do some of my live streams this month. I'm going to be showing everybody the crazy stuff I got going on the farm. So maybe you can tune in live for that one and heckle me.
Okay, fair. Sold. October 6th as well. I think I'd like to be involved in October 6th. I'm going to check my schedule. I'm a veteran myself and I love the ideas. So let me
Thank you.
do some research on that. And if nothing else, I'll definitely be contributing.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that for all those reasons,
Yeah.
Jason. We'd love to have you, because anybody who knows how to, wield some of those tools, which I know you do, would be
Yeah.
great to have you there. So thanks again, and see you later, everybody. Be sure to join me on Monday. See you then. Bye-bye.